You guys would smash up dressing rooms just because you felt like that's what you were supposed to do. You didn't realize that it would cost you money, but you had probably worshipped a bunch of bands.
Well, yeah, I mean, throwing TVs out of hotels. That was just all the stuff we read in like Cream magazine, or the stuff back in the day of, Led Zeppelin and,
It is impossible to talk about the history of thrash metal without mentioning James Hetfield and David Mustaine. Although these legends have influenced this music genre, there is bad blood between them. 42 years after James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich fired David Mustaine from Metallica, Hetfield has finally broken his silence over what happened back then, and it's bad. What did he say that has many fans debating and choosing sides? Join us as we reveal what James Hetfield said about David Mustaine in his recent interview. What Hetfield said, and why he finally spoke out. James Hetfield didn't say much about Dave Mustaine for years, apart from the usual things about their early days together. He never went into too much detail about why things ended the way they did. Recently, though, that changed in an interview. Hetfield didn't hold back this time. He talked about why Mustaine was fired, why he hasn't said anything in a long time, and why he finally chose to talk about his former bandmates' years of claims and anger. Hetfield said that the choice to fire Mustaine wasn't made on a whim. He said that the early days were crazy because Metallica was still trying to find their sound, and Mustaine was acting in strange ways. Hetfield said Mustaine was one of the most difficult musicians he had ever worked with, but also one of the best. So why then was he fired? It gets interesting. He said it wasn't just drinking or going to parties. It was the fights, the violence, and the ongoing tension. As much as they tried to resolve a particular issue, another one was popping up. In the end, they had to choose whether to keep going with all the issues on the ground or move on without Mustaine. They picked the second one. One of the main points of contention over the years has been Mustaine's remarks about who wrote some of Metallica's songs. Hetfield finally gave a clear answer in this interview. Some of the early songs that he said Mustaine helped with were The Four Horsemen, which Mustaine wrote originally as Mechanics, Jump in the Fire, and Metal Militia. There was no doubt, though, that these songs changed after Mustaine left. He said that riffs, which Mustaine contributed, are important, but they're not enough to make a song. Hetfield said that Mustaine often exaggerates how much he helped the band. He also said that while he admires Mustaine's ability, he thinks that Metallica changed the direction of those songs after Mustaine left. So why did Hetfield finally choose to speak up? Several things look like they played a part. In the past few months, Mustaine has been more active than ever, especially when Megadeth celebrated their 40th anniversary. In many appearances, he has talked about his time in Metallica, bringing up old grudges and criticizing the band. Close friends and family of Hetfield say that he is sick of Mustaine saying something bad, Metallica ignoring it, and the media picking up the story. Hetfield felt the need to clear the air this time. Another possible reason why he is speaking up now is his personal life experiences. In the past few years, he's gone through many big changes in his life, such as a public battle with addiction, a stay in rehab, and a divorce. Some people think that these events have made him think again about some things, and that maybe having this old weight didn't make sense anymore. Others think Hetfield just lost it after years of being quiet. In any case, what he said changed how he talks about the Mustaine issue. Hetfield also talked about how the feud has affected his emotional state. He said that Mustaine's comments over the years have upset him more than he thought. Whenever Mustaine talked about 1983, it brought so much pain. Hetfield said that there had been secret attempts to get back together, especially after Mustaine was diagnosed with cancer. At one point, he even reached out to help. But then there would be another interview, and it looked like all the work toward reconciliation had been lost. Hetfield said that he gets why Mustaine is angry, but that it's tiring to keep arguing about the same thing. The interview went viral very quickly. Fans broke down every word and argued about whether Hetfield was being fair or minimizing Mustaine's role. There were mixed feelings in the metal community. Some thought Hetfield was brave for finally addressing the issue, while others thought he was ignoring Mustaine's concerns too quickly. Even people who work in the music business joined in. Some defended Metallica's choice from decades ago, while others understood why Mustaine is still angry. It brought up an old argument that had been building for years, and this time Hetfield wasn't going to stay out of it. Hetfield also made it clear that firing Mustaine wasn't an easy choice. Mustaine has said over the years that he was caught off guard and kicked out without warning. That story was not true, according to Hetfield, who said that they had done everything possible to keep Mustaine in the band. There were many signs and chances to do better, but things kept getting worse. He got into a fight with Hetfield the night before Mustaine was fired, and he poured beer over Metallica's original bassist, Ron McGovney's amp, shorting it out. Hetfield said that this was the last event in a long string of bad ones. He agreed that the way they fired Mustaine, waking him up and giving him a bus ticket, was harsh, but it seemed like the only choice at the time. Let's discuss what happened after Mustaine was fired and how he responded next. The bitter feud that never died. One of the most discussed feuds in metal is the one between James Hetfield and Dave Mustaine. It all started when Metallica fired Mustaine in 1983. That was the start of decades of anger, rivalry, and public fights. Mustaine didn't just want to start a new band, he also wanted revenge. Megadeth became one of the biggest heavy metal bands because of his anger. That being said, Metallica's cloud always hung over Mustaine, and he never got over the anger that came with being fired from Metallica. Both Metallica and Megadeth grew in different ways for many years. Metallica moved toward a broader, easier-to-understand sound, and their albums and stadium shows finally became the most popular in mainstream rock. Megadeth, on the other hand, kept their attention on technical accuracy and speed, and they gained a loyal fan base of purists who liked their aggressive style. Fans and critics compared both bands, and Mustaine kept the competition going. In interviews, he called Metallica sellouts, made fun of their decisions, and made it clear that he thought he should have been a part of their success. It was more than just a rivalry between bands. It was personal. The rise of Metallica hurt Mustaine because it made him think of what he had lost. He used that pain to push Megadeth even harder. His songs were violent and angry, and his lyrics were often bitter. In interviews, he was always making fun of his old teammates. Even though most Metallica members didn't say anything in response to Mustaine's words, the tension never really went away. When Metallica put out a new record, Mustaine always had something to say about it. Fans always seemed to compare Megadeth's new music to Metallica's most recent work. The gap between the two bands grew bigger in the 1990s. Metallica became famous in a big way with their self-titled Black Album, while Megadeth doubled down on their technical approach with Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction. Mustaine, who doesn't hold back, criticized Metallica for changing their sound to be more marketable. He said that Megadeth would never do that again, making himself the protector of real thrash metal. But even though he said bad things, Metallica's success was clear. They were in a class of their own with their stadium shows, record sales, and huge radio hits. Even when Megadeth was at the top of their game, Mustaine always seemed to be looking over his shoulder at what Metallica was doing. Fans picked sides, and the fight became a part of what thrash metal is. Some people thought that Metallica was the band that changed metal and took it to new places. Some people thought that Megadeth was the most true to the roots of the genre. In the 2000s, when both bands were well established, the competition never really went away. In interviews, Mustaine kept saying mean things, like saying Metallica stole his work and playing down his influence on metal. Every meeting and reunion between Hetfield and Mustaine was closely watched for signs of unresolved stress. The Big Four concerts in 2010, with Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax, brought metal fans together in a way that doesn't happen very often. It looked like Mustaine and Hetfield were really smiling as they shared a stage and played music together. Some saw it as proof that the fight was over for good, but it wasn't long before old wounds started to bleed again. Mustaine started criticizing Metallica again, but they kept ignoring him, and the feud kept going. The difference is still there today. Megadeth is still a respected band in the metal scene, and Metallica is still one of the biggest bands in the world. Even though Metallica has been successful for decades, Mustaine still talks about them in interviews, which keeps the competition alive. But will this feud end? Let's find out in the next chapter. Chance for reconciliation. Recent comments made by James Hetfield have caused a huge uproar in the metal community. They have reopened old wounds and made fans wonder if there is any real chance that he and Dave Mustaine can get along again. They have been competing against each other for decades, and it has changed the thrash metal scene in ways that neither of them could have thought of when they were young, careless musicians trying to make it. But is it still possible to make things right? Or has too much damage been done? Hetfield said some things, and Mustaine responded right away, making it clear that he wasn't going to let Metallica's lead singer run the show. He seemed angry in his first social media post, where he said that Hetfield's choice to speak out after 40 years was interesting timing. He went on to say that Metallica had already hired Kirk Hammett before letting him go, even though Hetfield had said he would give him a chance. Mustaine also made it clear that he didn't want to be blamed for all the trouble they caused in their early years. He reminded everyone that they were all young, careless, and drinking a lot at the time. Even though they use harsh words, they are still polite when they talk about each other. While there may still be anger, there is also respect, because neither has fully destroyed the other's work or legacy. What does this mean for the rock bands Metallica and Megadeth? That's the bigger question. Their fight is one of the most important in the history of rock and metal, and fans of both bands have been comparing and competing with each other for decades. For some fans, this latest argument is just another part of a story that will never really end. For others, it seems like this could be the last time they argue before they finally settle their differences. It seems unlikely that Hetfield and Mustaine will be able to get along again, but it's not impossible. It used to seem impossible that they would ever share a stage together again, but the Big Four shows in 2010 and 2011 demonstrated that was not the case. During those shows, Metallica and Musique played together in a way that seemed professional and sometimes even friendly. Later, Mustaine said that their dinners before the show were casual and fun. He said he was open to working with Metallica again if the conditions were right. But even after all these years, the hurts from the past still feel fresh. Mustaine is still angry about how people see what he did in the early days of Metallica, and Hetfield's words didn't make things better. Mustaine worked hard for many years to make Megadeth one of the most important metal bands in the world. He doesn't want to be remembered as the person who was kicked out of Metallica. He thinks that leaving was a turning point for the whole thrash metal scene, not just for him. Without that moment, the past of the genre might be very different now. What will happen next? Mustaine's response shows that he is still sticking to his version of the story and won't let Hetfield go without a fight. But the fact that he hasn't launched a full-on attack shows that he doesn't want to completely destroy relationships. For now, though, the silence between them still says more than anything else. The door isn't open all the way, but it's also not closed either. Do you think James Hetfield and David Mustaine will reconcile? Kindly share your answers, thoughts, and opinions in the comment section. Whoopi Goldberg and Elon Musk's viral controversy. The seemingly unending beef between Whoopi Goldberg and Elon Musk began during a casual chat on The View, or at least that's how it looked at first. Whoopi Goldberg made some pretty serious claims, saying that Elon Musk and Senator J.D. Vance were secretly trying to take over the government.
Whoopi Goldberg has lost it. The host of The View is now convinced that Elon Musk and J.D. Vance are secretly plotting a coup against Donald Trump.
If Donald Trump ever got kicked out of office. Just think about that for a second. Talking about taking over the government is not just a wild opinion, it's a full-on conspiracy theory. But Goldberg didn't stop there. She went further, suggesting that with how close Musk and Donald Trump are, Elon Musk behaves like he's the president, questioning what he really wants and painting him as someone with way too much power. The other hosts jumped in, adding fuel to the fire, but Musk wasn't going to just sit back and take it. Typical of him, Musk wasted no time in responding to these accusations, making it clear that he wasn't going to let them slide without a fight. The whole situation turned into a heated back and forth, with Musk defending himself against the claims made on the show. It became a big deal, with people talking about the implications of such statements and what they could mean for the public perception of both Musk and Vance. The discussion on The View sparked a lot of debates, showing how quickly a casual conversation can escalate into serious allegations and conspiracy theories, especially when it involves powerful celebrities in politics and business. Now here's where things got even more serious. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX.
Okay, you've got your finger in so many different advanced technologies. As I said, SpaceX, Tesla, now you've got Solar City and the solar pack that people put in their houses.
Has taken a bold step by filing an $80 million legal proceeding instead of just tweeting about it. His legal team argues that the comments made by Whoopi Goldberg and her co-hosts were not only untrue, but also damaging to his reputation and business. Musk believes that their statements were not just careless, they were intentionally misleading, aiming to stir up unnecessary fear and negativity. He insists that media outlets should be responsible for the stories they promote, especially when those stories lack any factual support. In response to the legal proceeding, Whoopi seems to downplay the situation, saying her remarks were just meant to be lighthearted. She mentioned that she has been joking about Musk's ambitions, suggesting he thinks he's in a presidential race.
I do.
Well, you've been calling him vice president.
I've called him vice president. I called him president because I don't know what JD is doing.
The conversation turned to the idea that if there's a consistent push of false information, it raises concerns about the integrity of those who claim to be the good guys. Critics argue that you can't call yourself honest and progressive while spreading debunked hoaxes. Even sources like Snopes, which are known for their liberal stance, have labeled some of these claims as false. The whole situation was very messy, and it seemed like there was more back and forth going on. Musk isn't buying into the situation, and his fans feel the same way. Many of them cheered him on for standing up against false information, using hashtags like Cancel the View and Support Elon, which stayed popular for several days. One supporter even tweeted that calling it a joke doesn't change the harm it can cause. Words really do have an impact, especially when they reach millions of people. And honestly, they have a valid point. This legal proceeding isn't just about Musk going up against The View. It's really about the growing distrust people have in mainstream media. Critics of the show believe that it often focuses more on sensational stories rather than sticking to the facts, frequently going after well-known personalities to grab the public's attention and boost their ratings. Think about it for a second. How many times have we seen these intense debates turn into wild accusations? It doesn't matter if it's about politicians, celebrities, or business leaders. The pattern is pretty clear. The way these discussions unfold can lead to a lot of misinformation and misunderstandings. This situation shows a bigger issue in how the media operates today, and it raises questions about responsibility and the effects of what gets shared with the public. The public's criticism of The View. The discussion on The View often challenges conventional ideas, and while some people might label it as extreme, it's not solely focused on socialism. The major issue is whether they genuinely supported socialism in the first place. One person tried to express their opinion but was interrupted, as they felt the comment was an attack on their family. They emphasized that their daughter's well-being is crucial, and they have friends and neighbors who share their understanding of the situation. They urged others not to overlook their worries. At 47 years old, they expressed their respect for Senator Rand Paul, noting that viewers appreciate the show because it's associated with reputable sources like ABC News. They also mentioned that they have legal safeguards if any errors occur. The shift from reliable news figures like Walter Cronkite to personalities like Joe Rogan has been very obvious, especially since Rogan has some unusual beliefs, such as the existence of dragons. Up until now, social media is still buzzing with reactions.
We went from Walter Cronkite, basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it.
Every once in a while, supporters of Musk praise him for his efforts to combat misinformation, and hashtags like "cancel the view" and "support Elon" trended for days when the legal proceeding was revealed. But there are still critics who believe that Musk's legal action could lead to serious issues, making it more difficult for media outlets to challenge influential figures. They see it as a wealthy individual trying to use his resources to quiet dissenting voices. Meanwhile, Musk's defenders argue that this situation is proof of a double standard. One Twitter user expressed it well, questioning how we can hold the media accountable for lies if we don't support Musk's actions. They argue that this isn't about shutting anyone up, it's actually about rebuilding faith in journalism. The internet's strong interest in the legal proceedings made some users remind everyone that this isn't the first time Whoopi Goldberg has been involved in this kind of situation. Over the years, Whoopi Goldberg has found herself in the middle of various controversies, often making headlines for her questionable comments. She has a history of downplaying serious historical events and making provocative statements about well-known personalities. In 2022, Whoopi Goldberg, the actress and TV host, made a controversial statement on ABC's The View, claiming that the genocide of Jews by the Nazis was not about race. Although she later apologized for her words.
Good morning to you, George. Though Goldberg has apologized, her comments sparked a firestorm.
She ended up offending more people when she tried to clarify her comments during a late-night talk show. Following this incident, Kim Godwin, the president of ABC News, sent a message to the staff on Tuesday night, announcing that Whoopi would be suspended for 2 weeks due to her inappropriate and hurtful remarks.
This morning, ABC News suspending Whoopi Goldberg in response to her inaccurate claims that the Holocaust was not related to race.
She emphasized that even though Whoopi had expressed regret, it was important for her to take some time to think about the effects of what she said. In her memo, Godwin expressed that the whole ABC News team stands united with their Jewish colleagues, friends, and communities. She mentioned that making such decisions is always tough, but necessary. Just the week before, she had mentioned that the culture at ABC News is meant to be driven, kind, inclusive, respectful, and open. But she pointed out that Whoopi's comments were not an example of those values, which is why action needed to be taken. That's not the only viral controversy Whoopi Goldberg has been involved in. Just last year, what started as a simple birthday celebration turned into a big issue when Whoopi Goldberg, a co-host on The View,
Giving stuff away on my birthday, and these are some of the things I love right now, and they're all really great.
Suggested that a bakery in New York refused to take her order because of her political views. The bakery has denied this claim, saying that they have been overwhelmed with orders from local customers who want to support them. More controversies involving Whoopi Goldberg. The whole situation started when Goldberg shared on a recent episode of The View that she wanted to order some Charlotte Russe, which are delicious sponge cakes topped with whipped cream and cherries, from a family-run bakery in New York City. She had previously shown her support for Kamala Harris, the Democratic presidential nominee, on the show, which may have added to the tension. The bakery's owner, Jill Holterman, quickly responded to Goldberg's accusations, stating that the reason she couldn't take the order was due to some issues with their equipment, not because of Goldberg's political stance. But Goldberg stood by her story, expressing in an Instagram video that it felt strange to her that the bakery couldn't handle her birthday order, but was able to take a larger order of the same dessert from someone else who didn't mention her name. If you think that controversy is absolutely shocking, wait until you hear the next one. There are some old clips of Whoopi Goldberg where she openly praised Donald Trump, referring to him as a friend, but fast forward to the present, and she has become one of his strongest critics. This shift raises the question of which version of Whoopi we should trust. In a recent discussion, she mentioned how she was involved in movies and expressed her feelings about judging others, saying she loves everyone. She pointed out that people are trying to change the public's perception of Trump, urging others not to be swayed by his words. Moments like these lead to doubts about her reliability, especially with Musk's legal proceeding bringing attention to these inconsistencies in her statements. Let's take a step back for a moment. This situation isn't only about Musk or Whoopi. It's really about the clash between free speech and being responsible for what you say. On one side, we have the freedom to speak out against public figures, but on the other side, there's an increasing call for media outlets to check their facts and not spread false information. Should shows like The View be able to make serious claims without backing them up with proof, or should they be held to the same standards as traditional news outlets? As this legal proceeding progresses, everyone is watching The View closely. Will they apologize publicly? Will Goldberg stand firm in her statements? Or could this mark the decline of one of the most talked about shows in daytime television? What's clear is that this isn't just another legal dispute. It's a crucial moment that might change how we think about the balance between media, free speech, and accountability. The outcome of this case could set new expectations for how public figures are discussed in the media and how responsible those platforms need to be for the information they share. It raises important questions about the role of entertainment shows in our society and whether they should be treated like traditional journalism when it comes to making claims about people. This situation is definitely one to keep an eye on, as it could have lasting effects on how we engage with the media and the responsibilities that come with it. That's flatly rejected this offer. Trump's insistence that a border wall be built made it practically impossible for the parties to reach any kind of bipartisan agreement. This destroyed his relationships with leaders from both parties, and it made the tensions in Washington even worse. Instead of building a physical fence along the US-Mexico border, some companies offered alternative solutions that used advanced technology. One option was an electronic or virtual wall. Companies like Quanergy and Anduril developed high-tech surveillance systems that could monitor the border without a concrete barrier. Quanergy in particular created a LiDAR-based system that uses laser sensors to detect movement.
LiDAR, light detection and ranging. LiDAR is a remote sensing method that uses laser to measure elevation like ground, forest, and buildings,
and create 3D maps of the border area. The idea was that with this technology, which will be integrated with cameras, the surrounding areas can be monitored in real time, and in so doing, unauthorized crossings can be immediately identified. Anduril, on the other hand, proposed using their Lattice platform, which combines a network of different sensors, including drones and cameras, and uses artificial intelligence to analyze the data and spot potential threats or illegal activity. Their Lattice platform was to function just like Quanergy's LiDAR-based system. As an alternative, they also suggested using autonomous drones for aerial surveillance along the border. The advantage of these electronic solutions, according to the companies, is that they could provide enhanced security without the huge financial burden of actual construction. This was an excellent alternative. Even some Texans who didn't think a concrete barrier was necessary saw these virtual wall alternatives as a smarter approach. Interestingly, that wasn't the only option Trump was presented with. Some researchers devised a plan to create an energy park along the border between the US and Mexico. The idea was to invest in things like wind power, solar energy, natural gas, and water desalination plants, which will be positioned at the border. According to these researchers, this energy park could help improve agriculture and create new jobs and economic opportunities for the area. If Trump had opted for this, it would have been a win-win for the United States, because while the plant generates revenue for the country, the security placed there to protect the facilities will also serve as border security. The public opinion polls also indicated that most Americans supported a multifaceted strategy over simply building a wall along the border. According to them, if the government works towards creating a path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, increasing border security through technology, and expanding temporary worker programs, the majority of the problems of illegal immigration will be solved. Surprisingly, despite the viable options he was presented with, President Trump remained fixated on building a physical border wall and even went as far as declaring a national emergency to get the funding for it when Congress wouldn't fully approve his wall request. As soon as he became president, he built 455 miles of new border barriers. However, most of them were to replace the old fencing or vehicle barriers, instead of building a new wall across the entire border like he had originally proposed. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this channel to enjoy more videos like this. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.